Well, it's no secret that I am Bucks County proud, therefore always thrilled to talk about the Parks Casino, which is the #1 casino in all of Pennsylvania, and it happens to be in my native Bucks County, where at Parks they have it all. World-class headliners at the Excite Center, the open-air Liberty Bell Beer Garden, Parks Grill Steakhouse, Bamboo Noodle House, just a few of the outstanding restaurants. They've got action, excitement, live entertainment. It's a destination. It's Parks Casino. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. What fun today, pre-show, prepping and keeping an eye on the Platinum Jubilee, 4-day celebration for Her Majesty the Queen, 70 years on the throne, 96 years old. And TC, she looks great.
Yeah, I got to say, I have loved every second of the day and everything that's been going on and all the festivities. I'm
a sucker for it too. I'm a total Anglophile.
So
I love all this stuff. I admit it. And I was, getting a kick out of listening to Piers do his commentary. I wish that his co-hosts would have just stayed out of his way because he knows all this stuff and they clearly don't.
I did not realize what a monarchist he was.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think,
yes.
now that's something I like about him.
That's why he's been so defensive of Her Majesty.
I'm also defensive of Her Majesty.
And putting up a protective wall against those who would seek to bring her down.
I think no one is seeking to bring her down. This is a wonderful event for not just a family, but a country and indeed the world. It really is a historic time.
You asked me earlier today whether, when we were off air, because I've been to the UK on many occasions and I do love this stuff, whether I'd ever seen Her Majesty.
Exactly.
And I told you that I had not, but I reminded you of a story. And thanks to our conversation, I quickly had it added to the newsletter today, a story that involves my late father and one of our sons, and I hope people will read it at the newsletter today. It is the exclusive content, but here's the short version. My dad passed 4 years ago in the fall, in October. And when he passed, I delivered a eulogy where I shared anecdotes that didn't appear in his formal obituary. Just like some hopefully interesting little tidbits about my father. And number 3 on my list was that he served in the Army during the Korean conflict and that he had enjoyed his time immensely. He had completed this training program, a leadership training program at Fort Eustis in Virginia, and then spent most of his time as an Army surveyor in Germany. And he wrote to his parents every step of the way while he was serving in the Korean conflict. Never got to Korea. I don't want to overstate his service, but I want to tell you instead that my dad had leave and with a buddy or two went to London for the first time in his life, wrote a letter, TC, to his parents dated 18 July 1953. And my father said the big highlight of London was when we got to see the Queen. We saw her at Hyde Park and again at Buckingham Palace. We stood on the sidewalk of Buckingham Palace and waited. When she came, all the people rushed into the street and her car had to go slow, plowing through. We were right up front, about 4 feet away from her when I took the pictures. But my camera was set for 10 feet, so I don't know how it'll be. Such a picture is really a prize. They really worship her. And then I noted in my eulogy that in the summer of 2017, our middle son, my father's grandson, one of his grandsons, studied in London. And on his first day there, he stumbled upon a royal celebration. It was the Trooping of the Colour 2017, a celebration of the Queen's 91st birthday. Our son stood watching the entire royal family come onto the balcony at Buckingham Palace. So in other words, 64 years later, same Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, a different Smerconish. Our son took his own picture, only unlike his grandfather, he used an iPhone. Okay, so 1 month after my father's passing 4 years ago, I was going through some of his possessions and getting them ready for storage. And I found this small stack of slides that I don't know whether he knew he possessed at the end of his life. And I tried, holding them up to the light and seeing what was on.
You did that? No.
It didn't work. So I ordered from Amazon a very inexpensive viewfinder. This plastic contraption arrives 2 or 3 days later, and I slide one of the slides in, and lo and behold, there is a picture that Dad took of the Queen. And he was right. He was 4 feet away, and his camera was set for 10 feet away, so it's a blurred image. And I then had
exactly as he described it.
Exactly as he described. And TC, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you this story. I came within a wisp of putting those slides in some kind of storage where I would never have known. And instead, that year, for a Christmas gift, I had printed my dad's slide. I blew one up. You know how there are those services where you can blow up and put on canvas? I have a little private study at home where blown up on canvas, like if you came in and you saw it, you might think it's a piece of modern art.
Because
but
because when
because
it gets
of the
blown
blurred
up,
nature.
it's so blurred, right?
You know that it's a car and there's someone in the car, especially when you blow it up.
Okay.
But for Christmas that year, I gave to our son, our middle son, the picture he took of the royal family on the balcony and the photograph that 64 years prior, my father had taken of the same Queen.
That's insane.
When he was in London. And both of them, it was like their first day in London. And they see the Queen.
And they didn't even try.
They see the Queen.
They didn't even try.
Right.
That's incredible.
And there she is. And there she is now at 96, 70 years on. It's
the longest serving monarch in the world.
It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Yeah, I don't know what happens when she's gone, but I don't know, man.
Charles takes over.
Just the continuum, the
duty,
the steadiness of it. I know that it's great for business because there are suckers like me that want to go over there and take a tour of Buckingham Palace.
Not suckers, just
but I love that so much changes, and yet, there she is.
Yeah.
And there she is.
Yep. It really is, especially in this day and age where there's so much conflict. And in our country, we can't even all agree on anything. To have her there. And I know there are people that are anti-monarch, and I get it. That's not the days for that. This is not the day for that. This is not the weekend for that. I think it's really extraordinary.
So the answer to your question is no, I never saw the Queen.
No, I've never
I never saw the Queen, but I've got, 2 members of my family who one at a great distance and the other right up close. And the postscript to the story, read it all, because I lay the whole thing out in the essay that's in Smerconish.com today. Patrick Jeffson was the chief of staff to Princess Diana.
Yes.
So, and I met him because he's been a guest on this program, but because we both supported a particular charity and we were seated together at this charity event, and he's a wonderful guy. So when I made the discovery of these images, I shared the whole story with him, and he was able to go to, I think it's called the Court Circular. I didn't know the date that my dad, I didn't know.
How did he figure it out?
All of the royal activities, all of the official royal activities are published. They still are in the newspaper, in like the Times of London. And he was able to do a little detective work and enlist the support of the palace.
Come on.
Seriously. And he was able to find the circular of the date that the Queen and the route of her car, and it all jived with what my dad said.
There's the street in the background. I know exactly where she was.
No. I have a mission. My mission is that you can see buildings that are in the vicinity of Hyde Park where my dad took that picture, and I need to go find that building.
Yes.
I will, by the way.
Also bring the picture, print it, and bring it. And you've seen those things where you hold up a picture and then you take a picture from behind it.
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to do it because the building is the sort of building that I'm sure is still there. And look, you could find me in a forest in southeast Poland.
Right. Yeah.
10 miles from the Slovakia.
London's easy.
It's a mission.
You'll be glad to know that speaking of our children, my daughter Emma was in residence when Harry and Meghan got married and was on the route.
Did she see?
She saw them. I have a picture of her with the carriage behind, and you can see them going past, waving her little flag.
Did Harry look sad?
Stop. That is not the time. Will you just be happy for the whole? What's wrong with you? God, we almost made it through this. Isn't there something else you need to talk about?
All right. I don't even know. I don't know how to transition because there's more sad news today. Okay. So let me just transition. Headline from Tulsa: 4 victims died after an active shooter situation Wednesday evening at a medical clinic in Tulsa. Police received a phone call, an active shooter at the Natalie building of St. Francis Hospital. They later confirmed 4 civilians were killed. The suspect died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. All those details are at Smerconish.com. There's a good piece from NBC also at the website today about the Uvalde shootings evolving narrative. And they list all of the stories that were initially told that have now been pulled back by way of example, that the gunman, initially the gunman wasn't confronted by a school officer. Do you remember we heard that, and the propped open door and so on and so forth? We still don't know all of the facts. There was an interesting encounter yesterday with Pedro Pete Arredondo, the Uvalde school police chief, and Shimon Prokupez from CNN. That coverage is in the website today as well. David Sanger and William Broad from the New York Times today talking about whether a nuclear conflagration is still a serious possibility that could arise out of the confrontation between Putin and Ukraine, and now our supply of Ukraine with long-range weapons systems. I said earlier, and I'll say again, I'm sure the Biden administration has told President Zelensky under no certain terms are these to be used anywhere near the border, but that's a serious subject that we've also linked to today. The president's popularity ticked slightly upward, 42%, rebounding last week when it sank to its lowest level. 52% still disapproving of Biden's job performance. More numerical data, which explains what I just told you, and that is that gas prices are just completely soaring, more than $6 a gallon gas now. In LA, there's a station that's charging $8 a gallon. Hey, here's an interesting thing relative to gas prices. The president is now contemplating a trip to Saudi Arabia. And I have the coverage at Smerconish.com about this. And it makes me wonder, like, the reason that he would go and could actually have, a face-to-face meeting with the Saudi crown prince that he once said was a killer. Why, if I just heard this yesterday talking about Phil Mickelson again. I just heard on a cable outlet yesterday, people talking about how there's pressure now on American golfers who are PGA known. I'm not saying this, the nomenclature, I'm not getting exactly correct, but let me just say it in simple terms. The golfers who typically play for the PGA tournaments are tempted to go play for Saudi Arabia because they're forming a new golf tournament alliance. I'm not quite sure how to say it. And this is what got Phil Mickelson in hot water, because Phil was apparently going to go play. And then people were like, how could you go play? Jamal Khashoggi was murdered by the Saudis, and you're now going to be a part of that just because you're going to take the money, right? And Mickelson backed off. I don't know what he's going to do. One of the other major golfers just said he's going
Justin Johnson.
Is that who it is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, TC. So why can the president go meet with Khashoggi's killers and Mickelson can't go golf and take the money and run?
Oh my. Wow.
Just saying, interesting to contemplate. Today's survey question at Smerconish.com: do you agree with the Depp Heard verdict? Danny Savalos from NBC, brilliant guy and a great radio guest as well. I've linked to Danny Savalos at Smerconish.com today. He begins his analysis for NBC by saying the jury got it wrong. That it just doesn't make any sense the way in which they reconciled the facts of this case. As I watched the verdict coming in yesterday, I thought to myself, maybe the jury's going to find a way to blame them both. You could say that they did technically, but it was a huge victory for Johnny Depp. A huge victory for Johnny Depp, mindful of the prior day Vanity Fair essay from Monica Lewinsky, who essentially said, shame on all of us for being so preoccupied with the Depp and Heard verdict. And of course, today, people are trying to understand, what are the ramifications of this politically? What does it mean for the Me Too movement? I have linked at Smerconish.com today a Rolling Stone piece, headline, Republicans are doing backflips over Johnny Depp winning his defamation case. Like when did this become a Republican Democrat thing? Quote, the trial was ugly, both inside and outside the courtroom, and over the course of nearly 2 months, support for Depp became something of a stand-in for rejection of the Me Too movement, as well as of feminism more broadly. Republicans couldn't resist riding the wave. Here's the House Judiciary GOP's Twitter account posting a GIF of a triumphant Jack Sparrow. Okay, the House Judiciary GOP Twitter account using Jack Sparrow as an image as the verdict was announced on Wednesday. So, the survey question today, I suspect that the sophisticated POTUS audience has followed enough of the case to have a gut feel, and I'm asking you whether the jury got it right in all of this. There's a lot more content that I don't have time to describe at Smerconish.com today, but I think you'll be interested in a story about Bradley Cooper. He's playing the famed conductor Leonard Bernstein, and people are questioning now the propriety of the casting as well as his makeup, specifically the prosthetic nose that he's using. Do you remember the whole quote-unquote Sarah Silverman Jew face debate? That's there. And also, we have coverage today from Deadspin about, how shall I say this, TC, about a Philadelphia sports radio talk host who's no longer affiliated with his station where he's been for the last, 10 or 15 years. And there's an email chain that Deadspin has that is allegedly, reportedly, between he and a listener from a number of years ago, where they're going at one another, and the host allegedly, reportedly, is making homophobic charges against the listener. I'll tell you why the story's there today. Because for me, it was just reminiscent, and you were there and will know of what I'm speaking, of the hostility that surrounded the terrestrial talk radio environment. Do you remember? Of course you do. Do you remember that we used to have a bulletin board?
The crayon letters.
We had a bulletin board.
That's what I thought of.
We had a bulletin board in our office.
Yes.
Down the hall from the Go ahead, you tell the story.
So it's so funny that's what you thought of when you saw this, because what I thought is, why did he reply? I thought, why did he take them on? You would just ignore them, but you would enjoy them because we would get these letters that were like literally
nasty,
some of them written in crayon.
Nasty listener letters.
Awful letters.
Horrible.
You would pin them to the bulletin board.
Yeah, just for shits and giggles.
Diffuses things.
Yeah. Our response, I would never engage.
Yeah, but I would want to cry. Not now.
No, you did cry. You would cry when nasty.
Actually cry.
And it was like really more letters. Like people would write letters. And
really
they
hateful.
were so
that's because email
ugly.
wasn't as big.
And I would always say what this radio host allegedly would say to this guy, if this stuff's legit, which is like, what does it say about you?
Okay, what is it? You wouldn't say the homophobic stuff.
God, no.
Okay,
no.
Those emails, he did say. Wait a minute.
No. But here's my point. I would be thinking to myself, what does it say about this person who has such hatred of me as a host that they keep listening to me?
Why are you listening?
Like, why are you listening to me?
Do yourself a favor.
If I'm bringing you,
turn the dial.
Change the channel.
What the heck?
Change the channel. But if the radio host instead, this guy maybe instead engaged the listener and wrote lengthy responses and said some inappropriate things relative to homosexuality.
I think in my mind, he replied to crayon letters with crayon letters.
Here's the message. If this is unpleasant for you to be listening, watching, aware of me on any of my platforms, move along. Move along. There, you got plenty of choices. And for everybody else, we thank you for being here. Yeah, it was just a reminder. Terrestrial radio was SiriusXM.
SiriusXM is a different
wonderful.
level. Yeah,
it really is.
Level.
Honestly, it really is. That's why that story's in the newsletter today at Smerconish.com.
That's amazing.
Did the jury get it right in Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? Go answer today's survey question. Please make sure that you are subscribing to the newsletter and also watching on YouTube.